Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to begin the process of trying to install electric power assist steering in a 1965 Mustang Fastback. Now in the first video I opened up the box and showed you some of the components that came with the system. I also provided a diagram with all the components connected together. This way you would see what I'd be working with on this project. Now the first thing I'm going to do is center my steering wheel. Now with my wheels straight and my steering wheel straight, I'm ready to get down to business. It didn't take long to find issue number one. The parking brake handle will interfere with the location of the new electric motor. Now in my case, I had plans to relocate the handle over here, but just not now. I'll have to come up with a workaround later. Now guys, in order to get the column out as well as the steering box, I'm going to have to do a lot of work here underneath the dash, which means the carpet has to be pulled back. Now in order for me to do that, the kick plate as well as the kick panel will have to be removed because they're holding down the carpet. In addition, it's best to move the driver's seat to give yourself plenty of room to work on this project. Luckily, this is an easy thing to do. I removed the four grommets that are concealing the bolts that hold the seats. Can you see it? There it is. Now I'm ready to remove the steering wheel, the steering column, and the steering box. Now in my case it's pretty straightforward. Have one bolt underneath this cap. Also you just unscrew the actual turn signal. Also a few bolts underneath the column, as well as about 3 or 4 bolts underneath here at the firewall. Then everything just comes out. So let's do that. Disconnect the turn signal connectors. Hey guys, got the column out. However, now the fun begins. I'm going to have to cut the shaft. Now in late 67 and beyond, you don't have this problem. You have a rag joint. So let's cut this thing. Now with the old steering box out, it's time for the new. Now the new one has been centered, but I'm going to double check it. Make sure you confirm it has an equal amount of turns going left and right. Now with the steering box in, it's time to move on to the actual kit. Now I think it's important to note that some of the older videos shows that this coupler has to be tapped. You no longer have to do that. It comes tapped, and it's also welded on the other side, which is great. The only thing that you'll have to tap in this kit is this collar. Now the manufacturer says that tapping this is optional, but I don't think it is. I think you really should tap it. I think most people do. It helps secure the collar to the actual Mustang steering column. I think it's necessary. Alright guys, check this out. On the right side is the U-joint that connects to the steering box. You have the replacement firewall plate and you have the lower shaft. I say lower shaft because there's two parts to the replacement shaft. There's the hollow section and the solid section. Main thing when assembling this, make sure you don't over tighten it so it doesn't bind. Alright guys, moving on. This is the solid shaft. One end inserts directly into the lower hollow shaft, while the other end goes to the U-joint that connects to the back of the electric motor. Now one thing of concern was how this shaft connects to the back of this U-joint. It's only 2 tap screws with Loctite holding that in. Now if it detaches, there's nothing stopping it from sliding down the hollow shaft, as you can see here. So I decided to mark those tap locations and rough up those spots a little bit. I've seen others do the same to provide additional support. Alright guys, I run into issue number 2, the cowl vent. The cowl vent is kind of in the way based on where I want to angle and clock the electric motor. Everyone doesn't have to remove it, some people modify it, but in my case, it's coming out. Alright guys, I've taken the motor and mounted it to the cut column. Now the column is 11.5 inches and everything's held together by the tap screw that we talked about earlier. It holds everything together and makes it much easier to mount. But before we do that, I mounted the control unit on the kick panel. But as you can see, after removing the cowl vent, I have some surface rust that I would have to deal with later. Alright guys, now everything is now mounted. I got the assembly all together using the existing bracket, no need for a new bracket. You have the tab screw as well. You also have your collapsible shaft here in the back end, which is nice. So at this point, guys, I'm going to go back and start cleaning up some of the wiring as well as some of the surface rust we talked about before. I still have to deal with the emergency brake at some point. I also think while I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and replace the dash panel. I have a stock one here and I also have a custom one. I just haven't purchased the gauges yet. I also want to deal with some other cleanup issues, so go ahead guys and check out some of these other custom Mustangs that are on the channel. Final part 3 coming soon. Until next time.